Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Wednesday, the epicenter of yet another very, very busy broadcast week full of clickbait from 2016. Wake up this morning on Twitter, very thankful that digital ID was trending. People are becoming more and more concerned about the digital gulag being set up here in the United States and across the globe. But that was only for a few minutes. It was immediately overshadowed by Mueller. Yes, that was dominating in the trends on Twitter today. And I can tell you, I am just absolutely, I don't know, I'm bored. Are you bored of the headlines? These are recycled headlines from 2016 from Fox News. Russia. What are they trying to hide? As we were setting up today, and thank you to the beautiful, amazing Inez Annie Cyrus, who's producing the Shannon Joy Show today. I'm poking around on Rumble. We love Rumble. You guys are the best. They've been so good to the Shannon Joy Show. But honestly, like the headline, Steven Crowder, Trump and big balls are coming from the Democrats in Texas. Tim Pool talking about Trump and the FBI warning Democrats who are fleeing Texas. And this is all over that redistricting scuffle. We talked about it yesterday on the show. Republicans hate redistricting when it happens in New York State or California, but they love it when it happens in Texas. And Democrats hate redistricting when it happens in Texas, but they love it when it happens in New York or California. They're all such hypocrites, and I am so bored. I mean, I'm bored senseless by the nonsense that is spewed at me in terms of these headlines every day. And what we do here in the Shannon Joy Show, independent, not left, not right. We despise both parties equally on this show. We filter through these absurd headlines, try to find the truth, and try to talk about the things that matter to you. And I think owning a home, being able to own a home, actually realizing the American dream of property ownership and building equity like the rich people do, like that's something very uniquely American. It's part of the American dream. It's part of the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's slipping away. You guys see the headline of today's show, Trump's golden gulag. It's not a golden era. You'll own nothing, and that includes a house. You get nothing as they plunder this country, our nation, our land, and also regular Americans' 401k and their American dream. It is all going down the toilet, yet the conservative yappers, Con Inc., Bizarro Con, people like Tim Pool, continue to lie to your faces and tell you that this is a golden era, golden age economy. What a crock of you know what. We're not buying it here on the Shannon Joy Show, and I know those of you watching are not buying it as well. Concerns are mounting over the digital prison and economic instability, and that's a good thing, right? I was happy to see that digital ID was trending today on Twitter this morning. This had a lot to do with a warning coming out from an amazing medical freedom warrior, Michael Yeadon, who, yes, I am working on getting on the Shannon Joy Show. We know a lot of the same people, and he has a lot to say. We are going to look at a 5-minute address that he made to the nation. He is warning as many people as humanly possible about the digital ID, not just in the US, but in Western nations across the globe. A very clear warning and a very clear directive about what to do when they try to make you make the choice, when they say you won't be able to access this or that, you won't be able to go to work, or you won't be able to do these things unless you get the digital ID. He has a very clear directive on what to do, what we need to be prepared to do in the next 5 to 12 months. None of the big time yappers and conservative media are talking about this. They are doing a great disservice to their audiences. In the same way, in the dark days of 2020 and 2021, when they were rolling out the kill shots, they did a great disservice to their audiences, conservative Christian audiences, by not giving them the truth about the poison that people were being asked to inject into their arms. And now there are so many Republicans and conservatives who lament the day they accepted the COVID shots because they have experienced debilitating side effects and even death as a result. There are so many stories out there. People are still dropping dead. The turbo cancers are still happening. The heart attacks, the myocarditis, the pericarditis, all still happening. And, you know, that could have been avoided if some of the big talkers, Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Sean Hannity, The Blaze, Fox News, people that many of you trust to bring you the news every day. Maybe if they had given you a hint about the problem with injecting experimental gene-altering shots into your arm under an emergency use authorization, there's no possible way you can bring any product to market safely in 3 to 6 months. It's absolutely absurd, right? Everyone should have known this, but they read the lines, they read the propaganda to their audiences, and now so many people are in a terrible position. Well, the same thing's happening now with digital ID, and we're going to hear from Michael Yeadon today on that. His critical remarks are linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show under the headline of Shannon's top headings for August 6, 2025. In addition to that, while Donald Trump, the Trojan horse, is building the digital prison right before our eyes, he is demolishing the most central component of American freedom and self-determination, and that's the ability to own a home. The housing crisis is real. It's the fault of Democrats and Republicans. And Daniel Horowitz lays it out in a piece that I have linked again. It was linked in my show notes yesterday. We didn't get to it. We're going to get to it today. But this is a stark piece that lays it out very clearly, and it is very real. The dream of American homeownership slipping away as Donald Trump tells you, lies to you, and tells you that we're in a golden era. Here's a quick clip from that. Well, not a clip, but a quote. Sellers are trapped in low-rate loans, writes Daniel Horowitz. Buyers can't climb high enough to reach the inflated prices, and the market, once again, is frozen by design. It has never been more unaffordable to buy and finance a home in the United States of America under Donald Trump. That's my insert there. And yet government officials, Republicans who have a great amount of power, a Republican administration, seem confused about the cause, chasing solutions that will only make things work. We are going to go through his piece in this first segment with a fine-tooth comb, so that you guys understand what is coming your way. We also have an amazing guest. Courtaney Turner is joining us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to bring her in right around 12:35, 12:40-ish today to go over her piece. Again, the theme of this week, this month, and likely this year is going to be the techno-fascists, techno-fascism, the technocracy, and the takeover of the United States of America. It is happening very rapidly. They are using a left hand, right hand, Hegelian process to acclimate every American to a techno-fascist reality, complete 24/7 surveillance, massive digital collection of data, forced digital IDs, forced digital currencies, and it is coming more quickly than anyone realizes. This audience will be light years ahead of Mark Levin's audiences and the Fox News audience and Tim Pool's audience and BizarroCon audiences. Any of the influencers out there who are selling you a load of BS about the golden age and Donald Trump actually doing anything to solve the problems that were created by Joe Biden, those audiences will be behind. You guys are going to know what is coming in the same way that this audience knew exactly what to do in the face of vaccine mandates, because we brought the experts, the best experts, the truth tellers every single day. And for those of you who are still with me today, you know that if you were a Shannon Joy Show audience, that you had the best information out there in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And it's not because I'm smart. It's because I look for truth tellers and I bring in experts and analysts and researchers and doctors and economists who are truthful and who have lost in exchange for being truthful. Truly the most courageous out there. And tomorrow, I'm super psyched. We're going to be bringing Naomi Wolf and Sasha Latapova, both of them will be joining us in the Joy Virtual Studio to talk about the Maha report card. Bobby Kennedy Jr. and his administration under Donald Trump continuing to ignore the massive elephant in the room, and that is COVID mRNA poisoning, mass death, mass injury across the United States of America. Not only are they not pulling these products from the market, they are stepping the pedal to the metal and pushing out more mRNA technologies while trying to trick the American people, the MAHA movement and medical freedom movements, into believing that they're actually making progress. It is the death of the medical freedom community by 1,000 non-wins, right? These headlines, oh, we're going to reform ACIP, we're going to reform VCIP, we're going to suspend mRNA technologies, which is the latest headline, which is a load of BS. And Sasha Latapova was all over that like white on rice. They keep trying to claim victories for medical freedom and for MAHA. They are not victories. They are literally, from my opinion, PR headlines designed to trick you into think that they're making progress, which they aren't. We're actually moving backwards. And so there's a big kerfuffle within the medical freedom community. Of course, Sasha Latapova and Naomi Wolf and Mary Talley Bowden and myself, we're right at the center of it, but we're holding them accountable. And Sasha and Naomi will be with me tomorrow. We might get Mary too. I mean, we'll get the whole Bad Girls Club together tomorrow if we can grab Mary as well. And you guys know we take a lot of heat for standing up against some of the biggest platform, richest, most powerful medical freedom entities out there, a lot of them led by Bobby Kennedy Jr. And so they don't like it when we speak up about the lack of progress, but we're not backing down. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Do not miss that show. So let's say hello to everyone on the live chat, and then we'll get right to Daniel's piece. The rate cliff is real, and Washington created it. By the way, next week, Peter Schiff and Daniel Horowitz. Not fully confirmed. They confirmed for the week, not for the day yet. So I'll know more about that. But as always, we bring the most brilliant truth tellers into the Joy Virtual Studio on a regular basis. So keep it tuned right here. We're going to do a deep dive into Courtaney's piece, and she is our guest today, the Epstein transhumanist conspiracy, how Game B's conscious evolution hides a eugenics-fueled technocratic takeover. Okay? Jeffrey Epstein, Joe Rogan, Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein. How are these guys connected going way back to the early 2000s and then in a more meaningful way right around circa 2018 to create the left hand or the left wing kind of paradigm through which people would accept the techno fascists? An absolutely fascinating piece, which is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show today. Once again, under Shannon's top headlines for August 6, 2025. If you guys are watching right now and you're brand new to the Shannon Joy Show, please give us a thumbs up right here on Rumble. Share with your friends. Join us in the live chat. I love to see new faces. Never married, welcome to you, or to the Shannon Joy live chat. Love to see, as I mentioned, new faces. We have Cecilia 14, Guitar Lily, CJP Rumble. General Patton is with us today, of course, MAV 2022. If you're brand new, give us a thumbs up. Maybe consider joining our live chat, and make sure that you go to theshannonjoy.com, theshannonjoy.com right now. Sign up for the daily e-newsletter. I write it every single day. I curate some of the top headlines. I wade through all of the clickbait stuff and the nonsense and the lame headlines on left-wing and right-wing news media. And I bring the best voices, the best platforms. I also have my list here. We didn't get to my list yesterday either, which we will get to today. But that daily e-newsletter goes right to your inbox every day so that you know exactly what we're talking about on the live show. You have links to all of my resources, and I do a little writing as well. It's not very good. You can tell that it's not AI generated. I write it myself, 100% certified organic Shannon Joy every day in your inbox. And it just keeps you connected to me. If we ever get deplatformed, which we have before here on the Shannon Joy Show, this is my direct line to all of you. We're also going to enhance that. We're going to start running more polls, surveys, and petitions. We're revamping the Shannon Joy Show website. We're going to make it more dynamic and moving a lot more. So I'm excited about that. And that website, theshannonjoy.com, is going to be the direct line to me, this independent network. So let's see who we have on the live chat. Buskman is with us today. Great to see you. Western Pilgrim. Love to see you on the live chat with a great comment. They're everywhere. The Trust the Plan, 55-dimensional chess people, they're all bots. I posted out a clip that was pretty hot yesterday, again calling out Donald Trump, and it was hilarious. There were a lot of great comments, and then something triggered the algorithm, and the bots and the trolls just piled on. What they don't realize is that when the bots and trolls pile on and come in and call me all kinds of things, I mean, the see you next Tuesday and a loser B word and you're such a dumb idiot, you moron, what's wrong with you? I mean, you name it, they level it. But that only helps the the views for the post. And I don't know if they understand that when they deploy the bot and troll farms, but it's hilarious. Like every one of them formed in 2024, no pictures, 17 numbers behind their names, and less than 20 followers. Like, rinse and repeat. It is becoming so obvious that a lot of the support for the mainstream political apparatus, they're not real. They're not humans. And this is one of the big, dirty little secrets of AI and the digital expansion. A lot of it is fake. Anyway. So yes, I agree with you. You know, all the bots and the trollsters are out there. Edgar615 looks good. On the live chat, Rothan Walker is with us. Q Deplorable. Unbelievable. Speaking of bots and trolls, Q Deplorable is with us, making a showing on the Rumble live chat. Unbelievable. You are a joke, meaning me. Why don't you tell the truth and stop your incessant Democrat-style whining for a change? I finally own a house because of Trump. BS. I absolutely do not believe you. When we look at this piece from Daniel, I mean, yeah, Guitar Lily, yes, I see him there. Let's let him hang out for a little while. Again, it helps the algorithm. Opossum King, so good to see you as well. They are scanning faces at the airport already. Financial institutions are next. Opossum King, I never, ever allow my face to be scanned at the airport, despite, who is it? Who is, well, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Annie, help me. She's the new Department of Homeland Security Barbie. Yes, Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem, yeah, Department of Homeland Security Barbie is in every airport telling you that you have to have a digital ID. You don't. You can use your passport, and like 17 other things. And you also don't have to submit to the face scan. You can just say, no, thank you, which I do every single time I fly, and you can avoid that. Char Kubani, I have never been scanned. Good for you. Well, this is a great time to go into the Michael Yeadon video that I mentioned. It's 5 minutes. I want to run the whole thing, and then we'll get into this piece from Daniel Horowitz. Then we will bring Courtaney Turner in. She is going to be warming up in the bullpen right now. We'll go through her entire piece, the Epstein transhumanist conspiracy, the connection between Jeffrey Epstein and the techno-fascists, the technocracy. Yeah, his fingers are all up in it. And it's very interesting. Naomi Wolf's account of her experience back in the day actually lines up with what Courtaney has written about. So I'm really excited to bring her in. But Annie, why don't we run that Michael Yeadon piece, the warning about the digital ID and why we need to refuse it. In the same way that you refuse the face scan at the airport, you refuse the digital money, the same way so many Americans refuse the jabs, even though there was a great amount of pressure. We need to do this again. Great word from Michael Yeadon. Let's play that right now.
And I've explained that if you sign up for digital ID, it'll be the last really important decision you make, because your digital ID will be the only thing that your governments, institutions, and anybody authorized by those holding power will recognize you through. So you won't exist anymore. You'll be replaced by a QR code. You are not a number. You're an address to some resources. And that makes it particularly dangerous because those resources can be edited. And one of those fields, for sure, will be your vaccination status. And I'm absolutely sure, because I've seen it written down in multiple documents, that your digital ID will only remain valid if you comply with the conditions of validity. So one of them will be, have you had your latest recommended or mandated jabs? And because of the fact that I'm qualified in toxicology and worked for decades with others in what's called rational drug design, when I look at these jabs, the constituents, I am certain, formally certain, that they were designed to hurt you. And so, the digital ID will lose validity unless you roll your sleeve up. You must see that's designed to injure and, I believe, ultimately kill you. But you won't be able to escape that, because all your money will also be associated with your digital ID. So let's say you've gone to a supermarket, you want to buy a drink and a sandwich. You'll beat them through and it'll say, how do you pay? And it'll say, present your digital ID. And the cash register, as it were, the cashless system, won't proceed until you show it your QR code. And if you're not vaccinated, and if that means your digital ID is not valid, it will say, sorry, transaction refused. The merchant will not be able to sell you the product. So you can see how difficult this is. Now, a valid digital ID, just like a valid passport, is today required to cross a border. And I have no problem with a passport, of course. But I'd be pretty cross if to buy petrol I had to show my passport, or to buy a bottle of water I had to show my passport. But that is what's coming. You'll have to show your digital ID. If you said hurty words on the internet, you might find that your digital money doesn't work. If you're outside of your 15-minute zone and you're not authorized to be, you will not be able to buy anything. That's what's coming. It's the ultimate tool of slavery, the digital. It's called the digital Gulag by other people. I think that's not a bad phrase. And the way to stop that happening is to put your foot down and don't sign up for it. If they tell you, say you're, if it's a government, they might say, we're not going to give you benefits unless you sign up for digital ID. I can't help that. I'm going to tell you, you at this point have to choose. Obviously going to engineer it so that you'll feel you can't refuse. If you sign up for it, your life is going to end. Your free life is going to end. So I would say, like I always did with the jabs before I really knew what was going on, I would say, don't decide anything now. Defer your decision a month, maybe another month. Same with digital ID. Please, when it's first put to you, and especially if they threaten you, we'll have to fire you if you won't sign up for this. This is good for you, is it? Why would they threaten you? Why would they punish you for not doing something that's supposedly good for you? And the answer is, I mentioned earlier, always two reasons: the ostensible reason, the excuse, or the real reason. And the threats come because the real reason is what I've been telling you. It's for bad. So if they tell you they won't pay your benefits if you don't sign up for digital ID, I'm going to ask you to swallow hard and not sign up. You might have to sign up in a month or 3 months. Don't sign up. The more people who don't sign up, the more likely we are to be able to defeat this, because other people will be taking their lead from you. So if you've got children, I think you should be willing to go hungry for a bit. If I have to, I will, in order to stop this happening. So I made the bold statement, I'm not going to take on a digital ID. And some people have said, you will lose access to your money in your bank accounts. Do you know what? So be it. If I sign up for it, what's going to happen is what I've outlined to you. Money's not going to matter. One, they'll steal it. And secondly, I don't want to survive in a world in which I'm beeping my way into and out of shops and beeping my way to buy some moldy bread with insect flour, right? I'm not going to live in that world. So I'm just going to stop. And the worse the punishment threatened, brought upon me, the worse the retribution, the more sure you should be that this is a bad thing. So even if they say we're going to fire you, say respectfully, I don't trust this system. I'm going to defer my decision. I'm not going to sign up this month. Let them fire you. I think they'll have to give up. Remember NHS 100K when they said, we're going to jab you all or you'll lose your job. And 100,000 of them campaigned on the street, and the government actually gave in the next week. So there's enough power if we only just take our courage in our hands. And you only need courage when you're threatened. You need some courage now.
Such a great word from Michael Yeadon. And I loved the end of that, right? Like understanding that we might have to lose a little bit in the short term in order to make a decision that is going to secure our freedom in the long term. This was the exact conversation that we had on this show in the dark days of 2020 and 21 when they were rolling out the jabs. And I remember saying to my audience, just wait as long as you can. The jury is still out on these jabs. And what I found in those days, the people who had the most options, the people who had the most wiggle room, the ability to wait it out and defer the decision, these were the people who were the most emancipated from our government systems, our healthcare systems, our educational systems. The Amish, for example, if you want to go to an extreme, right? COVID-19 didn't even exist for them because they were sufficiently emancipated from our systems. That doesn't mean you have to be an Amish. That doesn't mean you have to be a Mennonite or go all Luddite, but it does mean right now, guys, we have some time. We might have 3 to 5 to 8 months for you to prepare, for me to prepare, to get some cash ready, some physical gold and silver on hand if you have to. Building up that preparation is going to give you the most power. Most preparation, maximum power. And that's in a variety of different ways, whether it's food, energy, your money. These are all things, even your spirit, right? Getting ready and preparing for this to come. They're going to make you make a choice at some point. They're going to make all of us, if they can, make a choice. If we defer that decision, it can thwart their plans. Then everything falls apart and we win. But that is predicated on enough of us coming together and speaking this truth and preparing ourselves and our friends and our families for what is coming. And this is what is so disastrous and disappointing and terrible about the right-wing news media. I saw someone on the live chat with a comment saying that well, you know, this is coming. It's inevitable. The mark of the beast is here. And that's why all the Christians are going to be gone. Well, let me tell you, all of the Christians are marching lockstep like sheep off a cliff because Donald Trump is telling them to do it. In the same way that so many Republican conservative Christians took the jab because Daddy Trump told them to, because Alex Jones and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity and Ben Shapiro begged their audiences and mocked their audiences into getting those jabs. Those were Christians. Those were Christians who are now idolizing Trump instead of actually getting into their Bible and understanding the times that we live in. So Christians are not safe in all of this just because they happen to be Christians. So I appreciate those words from Michael Yeadon. That clip is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show if you want to grab it. I'm not sure if that is from, I thought it was a new clip. It might be an older clip that is just running for some reason. It got platformed today on Twitter, but it doesn't matter. It was everything that I needed to hear to build up my resistance muscles and get ready for is what coming. Mama C 1996 depends on what you mean by Christian. Yes, there are many Christian fakers out there, like completely fake Christians. I know this because I've been a Christian for 42 years. I've read my Bible front to back from Genesis to the book of Revelations in multiple versions, you know, many times over the past 40 years. And I know a fake Christian when I see one. And so just so much deceit out there. Cecilia 14, Shannon, I was never fooled. I didn't have a veil over my eyes. H Baird 36, great to see you on the live chat. Grismore says, no, the Amish did get COVID. Yeah, maybe occasionally, but it didn't impact their life at all, okay? So I'm sure a couple Amish people got a little COVID and then they got over it because it was kind of like a cold. But I think that Aaron Day was so right yesterday when he said that the American people are potentially the most brainwashed people on the face of the planet. I think we are. And it's not our fault, okay? They are pummeling us with like $1 trillion sophisticated, like psychological operations. I mean, if you're not really looking for it, you're going to get sucked in by the propaganda. And yeah, we definitely have trolls on the live chat today. Yeah, if you guys are rude and obnoxious, that won't get you bounced off. But if you use profanity and you're just vile, Annie's going to bounce you. Okay, so we'll just keep an eye on that. Annie, if you want to keep an eye on the live chat. This piece is also linked up in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. This is from Daniel Horowitz. The rate cliff is real and Washington, D.C. created it. And I will say Donald Trump, okay, because he has been Washington, D.C. for the past 10 years. We're going to get to this at the end of the show. Maybe we'll go into this with, I know I keep telling you we're going to go through, this is a very good piece. It is literally 2 pages long. It walks you through from the dot-com crash after George W. Bush's post 9/11 spending spree to the Clinton era affordable housing schemes to 2001, 2006, when Washington juiced the market at every turn, to the housing collapse of 2008. Then he gets through, it comes full circle to COVID and where we are today, which is no one can buy a house. The dream of American homeownership is over. And Daniel lays it out so perfectly in this piece. He is going to be with me next week, fingers crossed. He has confirmed to come in for next week. I'm not sure what day. He's elusive, he's like an elusive gazelle. Getting him booked these days. He's like Whitney Webb. Okay, she's impossible too. But it's because he's had health problems with his throat, and I think that he's taking care of them, which we're so glad for. As you know, we love Daniel Horowitz. He is on my list of some of the best voices out there for truth. We're going to get to that list today as well. I promise. But we do have to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to bring in the amazing Courtaney Turner. Speaking of Whitney Webb, and I hate to compare her, but wow. I mean, she has a way, we love Whitney Webb, exhaustive research, but Courtaney Turner has a way of boiling this stuff down in layman's terms, explaining it in a very clear, organized way, and taking a big topic like technocracy and the Hegelian dialectic and what is coming our way and making it understandable to regular people. I cannot wait to introduce her to you again, this time in a longer format. She was part of a panel last week, but we just couldn't get enough of her, so we had her back on this week. We're going to bring her in right after the commercial break to continue this discussion today on the Shannon Joy Show. So keep it tuned right here. We'll be right back. Donald Trump preparing an executive order to open up your 401k up to $12 trillion in private funds, Americans' retirement investments, to shady private equity and cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. The scariest part about this is that you might not even know that your funds now have been opened up to investments in some of these type of operations, that your investments could be converted. Even if you know about this, there might not even be a way for you to get out of it. This is why the self-directed IRA backed by gold and silver is so incredibly important. The only company that I trust is Colonial Metals Group. Not only do I purchase my physical gold and silver from Colonial Metals Group, but I also have an individual self-directed IRA that is backed by physical gold and silver. This is not paper gold and silver. It's the real thing. And the process was so surprisingly easy, so quick. You can do it in less than a couple days. I love the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. They don't do pressure selling. They don't try to manipulate you. They don't use fear selling. They just meet you right where you are. lay out all of the options. If you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, because they're opening up to IRA as well with this executive order, if you have saved your entire life and you are concerned that that is going to be erased by some of these new executive orders and legislation, now is the time, guys. Do not wait. Have that conversation. There's an amazing rep standing by. Tish was my girl. She's amazing. Just go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Make sure you tell them that Shannon Joy sent you, and you can get on the path to backing up your retirement with our friends at Colonial Metals Group. And also make sure, speaking of emergencies, we're talking about, being prepared. And the more prepared we are, the less we will succumb to fear campaigns and to coercive campaigns that are inflicted upon us by our governments. And so in addition to having your finances secure using gold and silver, we also love our partnership with our friends over at the Satellite Phone Store. In an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a government-inflicted pseudo-emergency, whatever it is, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be, and the better you're going to be able to make decisions for your family that will help you in the long term. And so Satellite Phone Store has been our one-stop shop at the Shannon Joy household for everything that we need to be prepared. Whether it is a solar panel or a generator, they have all sizes of generators that you can use in short term, long term, whether it's the Faraday collection, right? Protecting your devices from EMP, EMF, and also protecting your bodies from EMF radiation, 5G, 4G, 3G, you name it, all the Gs. They have the most extensive line of Faraday products, I think, on the market, and they are the highest quality Faraday you can get. From the blankets, the beanies, and the bags. They are always 10% off when you use the promo code JOY. So go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Always use that JOY promo code. It always works. And of course, they have the satellite phones. The best way for you to keep in touch with your loved ones when the lights go out. And as we have seen in recent news headlines, the lights are going out more and more. And as they are taxing our grid with this building of the techno digital gulag, they are using up more and more energy sources. And so many outlets are, you are seeing one story after another of predicted rolling brownouts, blackouts. This is coming. This is going to be a reality in the next 24 months because of the expansion of the technocracy and the data centers. And so this is when, we need to be prepared. That's why you need the satellite phones and all of these preparation materials. So sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. Let's bring our good friend, Courtaney Turner, into the Joy virtual studio. You have been waiting patiently in the bullpen to get started. I am so thankful. We're going to keep you right through to the end of the show today. Courtaney, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's do a little background on you for the audience first. This is your first time officially as a solo guest on the Shannon Joy Show, and you have an extraordinary history, and it's just so uplifting and wonderful. Let's just take a couple minutes so that you can introduce yourself to the audience in your own words and tell them about how you got involved in being one of the best researchers and analysts on this issue of technocracy that I have found in a long time. So I really appreciate your work. I can't get enough of it. But yes, please give us an introduction and then we'll get into the interview.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So the joke I make is that, I was completely asleep. And then in 2020, I suddenly had my eyes open. And so I was scrambling, to try and find this train station. I found the high-speed rail and, I'm still scrambling to try and catch up.
Right.
So things just keep happening so fast. But yeah, so I was living out in Santa Monica, California. I was a CrossFit coach and an aerial acrobatic performer. I would do aerial performances and share my story. My birth story is kind of unique. And I would talk about movement as a metaphor for life. and talk about how people can use their physical training as a tool to help them overcome adversity in other areas of life. And I would do the aerial performances as a testament to what is possible when nobody thought it was. So in 2020, I found myself, jobless and really isolated. I got fired from all the gyms I was coaching at. All of my speaking and performing engagements were canceled, and I found myself not only jobless with lots of time and reduced income, but also really depressed because I didn't realize how much all the coping mechanisms I spent my life developing were stripped from me when people's faces were covered.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar with my backstory, my mom was sick during first trimester of pregnancy. And so I was rendered with several complications, not only, but not limited to, but including I'm blind in one eye, I'm bilaterally hearing impaired. I learned how to speak by reading lips because I didn't get hearing aids till I was almost 6 years old.
Wow.
And I had heart surgery when I was 1 year old. I was born with hypotonic limbs, fine graphic motor impairment, stunted growth. So all sorts of challenges where they told my mom the best she could hope was to find a nice institution for me to spend my life.
Girl. Wow.
So fortunately, she did not believe them and they were wrong. However, I found that, I spent a lot of my life trying to compensate. And when everybody's faces were covered, I was really, really isolated and very, very depressed because I couldn't really talk to anybody. I couldn't understand what they were saying because I didn't have clarity of speech. So I could hear the voices, but that was even more frustrating because I had no idea what anybody was saying.
Yeah.
So I was really alone, and people had started suggesting that I, listen to podcasts. Somebody had made the joke, I think I shared this with you privately, but they heard my birth story and they're like, you need to be on Rogan. And I was like, what's a Rogan? Why do I need to be on it? So I know who Joe Rogan is for the record, but at the time I didn't. I mean, I was that clueless, but I started listening mostly because I was curious why I needed to be on Rogan, but also because I had nothing to do. And it was a way of hearing voices and, getting some sort of communication, intellectual stimulation. So I started listening, and then people were suggesting I start a podcast. And again, I knew nothing about podcasting, and this sounded like a horrifying idea. But then it dawned on me that I could have naked face conversations with people.
Let's go.
Yeah, right. Even through a digital interface, I was like, this might save my life. So
yes, absolutely. And you were a performer. So, you were a speaker, you were a performer, you were trained to do this
as well. Yeah.
And an actress. Yeah. So I think that it makes a lot of sense going into the podcasting. Amazing. Yeah. So
I made a commitment for 6 months, and I had told people who I interviewed if I was so fortunate to get people in person, that was awesome. But even if it was online, I told them that for 6 months I was just going to record, and I might not even air them, that it was just a commitment I made to myself, and they really enjoyed it. I was feeling revived and like, maybe there's a point to life again.
Oh, I know. It was horrible. And I was depressed too. I don't know if you guys remember, but I got kicked out. I had a radio show at the time. I got kicked out of my studio.
Oh.
And I mean, I had an office, I had a producer, I had a studio. It was like in iHeart. They closed down everything, kicked us out. And I literally for 2 years, had to cut my show literally like a mic and a wall. I like no interface. It was monologue. I couldn't really do guests. I didn't have the technological. So I cried probably for 6 months and started smoking. I was smoking in my basement, like as a troll. I started smoking again because I was so depressed, but I would cry before my show. It was awful. So I get you. I so relate. And everyone knows the story about my basement smoking during COVID.
You started smoking. So there was the only place, I lived right behind Main Street in Santa Monica. Yeah. And the only place that would let me in without, covering my face was this liquor store. And this was this very lovely older Chinese man who talked to me like just
Oh my gosh.
just have conversation
Yeah.
and be willing to deal with me, my naked face, that was
Right.
such a threat to humanity. And it was such a relief to, be welcomed in and have somebody to talk to that,
Mhm.
but I felt bad going in daily and not buying anything. So I started buying bottles of wine. And after a month of like, and I'm not a big drinker, so it would be like, I'd get through like half a glass. I'd finish maybe a bottle, like, it would take me like a few weeks,
So
but I found myself after a month, I was like, and I actually really I love the taste of red wine. I'm not a
yeah.
big drinker, but I love it. And
Mhm.
at the end of a month, I was like, this is gross. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, but it was the thing to do. And because I felt bad walking into this guy's store and not, patronizing. So
Girl, we did what we had to do. We did what we had to do in the dark days. And I do. I think that there was a population of people that were impacted by this in a way that was intense,
yeah.
demoralizing, depressing, and I'm not sure why. I don't know what it is about people like you and me that we just raged against it immediately.
Yeah.
Maybe it was built into us, but that was the beginning, I would say, of the medical freedom movement, or this movement that is, right now in what I would guess to be a very false sense of security
Yeah.
and safety because of the election of Donald Trump. So I don't want to cut off your story. I want to let you finish the story, but then we'll move into
Yeah.
you started your podcast and got kind of acclimated in, and
So I started my podcast, and I would say in hindsight, I was pretty naive. I had this whole kind of mindset that if we just got the right people in office, we could fix this whole big mess. I very much felt like the Republicans were behaving as controlled opposition for the left. And after a few weeks, I mean, really, it was that quick. I was like, no, they were created to be controlled opposition to the left.
you got it fast. She picks up real fast, guys. She's a quick learner. She starts watching Joe Rogan and like figures everything. It took everyone, like people like me, 10 years to figure this all out. But it's because we were heavily indoctrinated into the parties. So it makes sense. But go ahead.
So I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And then it was, I don't know, I think it was December of 2020, and I had a friend send me this video. It was midnight. I don't know why in 2020, I guess nobody slept, but it was always midnight when somebody had this like urgent message for me. I was like, and of course I couldn't sleep that night because there was always something so pressing and earth shattering.
Oh, yeah.
But a friend of mine sent me this video, and it was of Dr. John Coleman doing a presentation on the Committee of 300. And surprisingly enough, this is actually still available on YouTube. I don't know if just so many people have uploaded it that they haven't gotten them all. I don't know, but it is available. And I watched it. I said, no, I've never heard of him. I watched it, and I started looking that night for everything I could find on him. And I found this book on Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. And it was retailing at that time on Amazon for almost $4,000. And or maybe it was almost $5,000. It was a program. Yeah. And I said, well, what's in here that they don't want us to know? I called my friend back. We were on the phone till maybe 5 a.m. And I had found the book online. He's no longer with us, so I'm not, stealing from his income. But I found it for free online, and I read it 3 times in a week. And for me, it was just very eye-opening because it involved all the things I had been immersed in through my, through all my years, through my life. It was I was in the entertainment industry. Tavistock was influencing through the culture, infiltrating culture.
Well, can you explain the Committee of 300 and Tavistock? Let's start there, because I don't know anything interesting.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
So Tavistock was really like my big kind of light bulb moment. And it was because they are very much infiltrating through the field of psychology. I wrote 285-page theses in high school on dream analysis. So they were really dissertations. Like I presented before a panel of neuropsychiatrists. You had to do field study. You did a review of the literature first semester, and then I had to do field study. My second semester, my senior year, I was actually able to drop courses because I had enough requirements already done to graduate. I went out to San Francisco. I was mentored under Gail Delaney, Dr. Gail Delaney's in her method, the interview method. She was the founder of the Association for the Study of Dreams. So I'm very immersed in this world of like psychology. My mom was a psychologist, and I also did independent studies in high school on philosophy. And I featured in philosophy. So the Tavistock is likely, there's not a direct, smoking gun to prove this, but all the arrows point in this direction, that it's an extension of the British War Propaganda Bureau.
Okay.
Was out of World War One, where they congregated in the early 1900s. It was like around 1913. Edward Bernays and Walter Lippmann were kind of disciples here in America to oversee Woodrow Wilson. This is how we got our lovely income tax, the Federal Reserve Act. The Tariff Act, which led up to that, and all this propaganda about how we should switch over from the tariffs into income tax, which was originally, the tariffs were originally our income.
Taxes, right? No, but see, this goes to my point. Every time I tell everyone tariffs are taxes, taxes are tariffs, like this whole thing, like, thank you.
You got it. That's exactly right. And it was of income. It was the primary means for the nation at the time. Right. So then there was the Tavistock Clinic. I'm going to give you the quick rundown just because, I've done, so this was like really the bulk of my research for the first few years of my podcast. But the Tavistock Clinic was developed in 1920, and this was ostensibly to study the shell shock therapy, as they called it, post stress disorder of the soldiers. I would argue they were calculating the breaking point so that they could weaponize it. But so this is where they get, all the clinic itself was in the Tavistock Square, but the building itself was donated by the 11th Duke of Bedford, who is directly related to the founder of Skull and Bones, Russell and Taft, who were the founder. Taft, who is also related to our president Taft. This was in 1920 where we got this Tavistock Clinic, and they're doing all this kind of research on therapy, but also propaganda, mind control, right? We've got like John Rawling Rees with the Shaping Psychiatry by War. We've got Kurt Lewin, who worked with Tavistock, but also worked with the Frankfurt School. He's known as kind of like a Frankfurt School refugee. There's a lot of intersection between Frankfurt School and Tavistock, which was also why it was of such interest to me. And then we've got so World War I, they study the shell shock therapy. And so it's kind of like calculating the breaking points for trauma and trauma-based mind control, essentially. And then we get to World War II. And very interestingly enough, this is very related to, I even put it into my Phoenix Conspiracy article, where there was an Operation Phoenix in Tavistock. And this is born out of the ashes of World War II, where everybody's devastated by the war. So World War I, they're studying the individuals who were so traumatized, and under the auspices of how we're going to treat them. And then in World War II, now everybody becomes a Tavistock patient because the whole world is traumatized, right?
That's right.
So they were studying.
Well, and now we're constantly traumatized. I mean, I think this has so many links to what we're experiencing today: 9/11, the anthrax scare, the housing collapse of 2008, the COVID, fear campaign, like all of it. It's like we're in a state of constant psychological trauma, like in fear, trauma, fear, anxiety. And that's like, I think it's why we're also, as Aaron Day said, we're all so easily brainwashed here in the United States of America, because I think a lot of these things we're seeing on a mass scale.
I absolutely think so. And I think Tavistock in World War II took it mass scale.
Okay.
Now under the auspices that everybody's traumatized, we're going to help everybody. Everybody's a patient now.
Yeah. Don't traumatize us first. Why don't we start there? Then we won't be traumatized.
Yeah, right. Let's minimize the trauma. Maybe we won't need all these treatments.
Right.
Of course, Kurt Lewin, who was the quote unquote Frankfurt School refugee, also worked with the National Training Labs, also was at Office of Naval Research. He created this sensitivity training. My algorithmic oracle essay that I wrote on Substack, I talk about my thesis is that sensitivity training, which the National Training Labs manual in 1947 admits is brainwashing. They say, and then there's a CIA document in 1974 where they say that it's brainwashing. So full disclosure, they've already admitted it is brainwashing. But my thesis was that the Delphi method out of the RAND Corporation, which works very closely with Tavistock, so does Stanford Research Institute, who gave us the Changing Images of Man document and research project, that they took the premises of sensitivity training, and then they made a mechanistic, systematized version of it under the auspices that they needed to calculate the efficacy of technology during wartime. That was the Delphi method, and that now what we're seeing is the Delphi method and sensitivity training hybridize into cybernetic algorithmic psychological warfare, essentially.
Wow.
So we've got all that. And then, so Tavistock wasn't really known to many people until 2022, when there was that whole scandal with the GIZ, the Gender Identity Clinic, which was a part of Tavistock. So then a lot more people became familiar, but they've been engaged in the Institute was 1947, and it was born out of this Operation Phoenix, where they gutted everything, but they got an injection of funds from the Rockefellers in 1946 to create the offshoot. So the clinic is focused more on therapy, both individual and group therapy, and the Institute is focused more on mass scale research and corporate culture. So this is where we get like all, and they're very Esalen adjacent. So we get all of these, EST kind of workshops like Landmark Forum, which are also, sensitivity training, brainwashing types of, and this is where you get corporate culture, where they kind of brainwash you through human resources. And that human resources culture actually came out of Tavistock. So they're very involved with culture, with the whole counterculture movement. But yeah, they're still very much alive and well today. And in fact, I have screenshots of them where they talk about like inviting you to their Leicester conferences, which have been going on since 1957. And they say it's an awakening organization. And they say, Gnostic Reticulist, it is your time now. We're going to teach you praxis. They literally say this.
Okay.
It's on their website. Like, right out there in the open. So
unbelievable. So we're looking at, and these are actually critical elements of, I think, understanding politics today, understanding the technocracy. It is, from my perspective, and I agree with you, I think it's a series of systematic trauma, mass conditioning, especially using social media now and the internet. The technology has gotten to a point where it can really pinpoint it. So, with the gathering of information and data on Twitter, on Facebook, all the social media platforms, they can really build a profile of you, a digital avatar, and attack you directly. The things that you're afraid of, the things that push your buttons, and they can manipulate people into voting trends. They can manipulate people into wearing a mask that is absolutely ridiculous. They could probably manipulate people into saying that the sky is green and the grass is blue, right? Through this system. And I think what you're saying here is that this is not by accident. This is using psychology, psychological principles, an enormous amount of research and study and human experimentation, I would guess, throughout the past 100 years that has led us to this day of mass confusion. And also, I think this day of now vulnerability to the technocrats, which you say are infiltrating our culture here in the US through a left-hand, right-hand paradigm. It's a form of the Delphi technique. It's a form of the Hegelian dialectic. And they're using this now to acclimate us to a radically different American experience and a radically different type of American governance. The Constitution is out the window. The Bill of Rights is out the window. You as a human with human rights gone out the window, and they're anesthetizing us. They're keeping us fearful of a variety of things, but now conditioning us to accept this inevitability of the AI gods and the digital collection and the digital ID and the digital currency. So with that setup, and let me know if I'm getting that wrong in any way.
No, you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with the Delphi technique and the Hegelian dialectic, which is it's complicated to understand, but once you get it, I feel like you'll never ever see politics or the world the same ever again. So I think you'd be a great person to explain, those techniques and that paradigm, the Hegelian paradigm through which I think politics is operating today.
Absolutely. So the Delphi technique it's pretty simple. It's like a series of essentially surveys where they do iterative rounds, and it's a way of trying to manufacture consent. So they call
Mm,
it consensus building, but I mean that's essentially manufacturing consent.
right.
And so the premise is that you don't know who the quote unquote change agents are who are facilitating it. And so, under
Mm.
that premise, they say that it's actually less biased. However, this is really based on the work of Wilfred Bion, he was the one who was involved with Eric Triss. By the way, just a little, fun fact, but Eric Triss' son is Alan Triss, and he was the producer for The Grateful Dead. So,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
yeah.
Good to know.
So,
Well, a lot of people, I see everyone on the live chat right now, they're saying that the Beatles were a creation of Tavistock, so much of the 1960s, all of these big bands that just came out of nowhere, all these superstar famous people that just pop up, right? That's not by accident. They're probably change agents in some way in this kind of Delphi technique, which can be used at a meeting level, a corporate level, at your local governmental organization, but also on a mass scale to inject change agents, pop culture icons with a particular goal of shaping things. But I'll let you continue. And that's, yeah, go ahead.
social engineering, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have Wilfred Bion had this concept of leaderless groups, and this was born out of the War Office selection boards that he was working on, which I can't prove, but I'm pretty sure is where we got that mice to rascals framework. You can find that on the CIA.gov as well. And this is how they pick military leaders, like intelligence assets and, all various types of military leaders. But they do talk about espionage as well. So it's right there in that document. MICE stands for money, ideology, coercion, ego. So you can see how this works.
Wait, so MICE is how they get agents,
Yeah.
and they're motivated by money, ideology. You said, what is the C?
Coercion,
Coercion, and the
and
E?
ego.
Ego. And each person has a different kind of psychological profile, I guess, and they manipulate through that.
Yes, and they say rascals was like what they changed it to, but it's almost the same. And it's what they're doing is they're looking for people who are going to be susceptible, right? So people who are going to be easily swayed by dangling the carrot of a lot of money, or people who are, maybe narcissistic profiles, and so you stroke their ego, and you're going to have a lot of influence over them, or they're more compliant and coercive. An ideology. So people were very ideologically entrenched or driven, motivated. So yeah, that's
And so those are the people that they will elevate to
be change agent. Those are the people who they will groom as change agents because they're much more susceptible, because they're easily led by those types of things.
Do these people know they are agents or being used? What is the level of knowledge, do you think?
This is how I describe controlled opposition. I describe it as if you're about to climb like a very tall scaffolding, like let's say you're going to paint on a building, right? You're climbing up this ladder. You've got a harness on you, right? Because when you get to the top, it's super dangerous. It can be windy and you might fall and then you'd probably die. So you've got a harness on you. And when you're at the bottom, you have a lot of latitude. Like you don't really know what's going on at the top, like who's pulling that rope. But you could even unhook and you're free.
You're fine.
You go like midway. Suddenly you're starting to feel that harness on you. Right? So you don't have as much leeway. You don't necessarily know who's at the top, who's pulling those strings. And you don't know why. You just know like you can't really move very much. You've got like maybe a few inches and that's it. You can go up a step and down. You get to the top, like you're locked. Yeah. So that's how I describe it, because sometimes people are useful idiots, right? As the phrase goes, they don't know they're being utilized. But whatever their message is, whatever they're working on, whatever their voice is very useful to an agenda.
Sure.
And so the people pulling those strings know that, but they might not. They might just think, "Oh wow, I'm doing great work, and look at me getting all the money, the fame, and
I'm so talented. Look at me."
Yeah,
the pop stars. These are pop stars and like the sitcom stars and the low level movie actors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like,
Right.
oh yeah, I just have but the further up you go, whether it's an organization, whether it's a company, whether it's an individual, the more likely they know that they're being utilized. But when you look at the model of the military, everything's very compartmentalized. And it's done so strategically so that people don't see the bird's eye view. If you
Mhm.
see how things are interconnected, you might not, your conscience might get in the way of advancing the mission that you've been tasked with. So that's another way that they utilize that is, keep you kind of with blindfolders, your focus. I mean, science is a really great example of this. People in the science field are so myopically steeped in what they're working on that they often have no idea. They're focused on a tiny little particle that they have no idea how this relates to a bigger picture. They haven't stopped to think about it. They're busy solving a very specific problem. So
Yeah, that became very evident within the medical freedom community in the early days of COVID resistance and resistance to the jabs. So many of the experts that we relied on were really great at the science, but they could not see the big picture. They couldn't really grapple with the political aspects of this. And this is why I think the medical freedom community, many of the leaders got sucked into the Trump con, right? Because they associated COVID shot mandates with Biden and then imprinted on who they thought was a hero through the vessel of Bobby Kennedy Jr., right? He was the one that gave the legitimacy to Trump. And then because they don't know about history and psychology and politics and the Hegelian dialectic and the Delphi technique and Tavistock and all those things, they're just not prepared. They're science driven and they're very siloed in their expertise.
yes.
Interesting.
I also think the medical freedom movement, whether it was created as such or whether it was hijacked for this purpose, that I can't speak to. I have theories on it, but I can't prove them. So it's just I could only speculate, but I do think that it was utilized to shift the Overton window. Because if you look historically, most of the people who were like, not with the abortion issue, but with, medical stuff, my body, my choice kind of people, and who were holistically minded, who were, anti-big pharma, anti-experimental types of pharmaceuticals, most of those people were traditionally on the left. They were, what you call, and I don't mean this to be pejorative or derogatory, but like your crunchy moms, right? They were like your right? And they were people who typically either were apolitical or anti-establishment or voted Democrat. And what happened with the medical freedom movement is it came in and it slapped this label on people, like you are now, quote unquote, a right winger. You're a libertarian, a conservative, whatever, it was. And a lot of these people were baffled by it. They said, I've voted Democrat my whole life, or, I've never voted. And they said, okay, now I'm a right winger. I'm a conservative. I vote Republican. That's how it is now. But I think that was very strategic because it moved the Overton window and it was a way to infiltrate and seed narratives. You saw something very similar recently with a lot of conservatives would never have purchased an electric vehicle. Right. And what happened with once they started rioting and protesting Elon, people who could afford it marched out to get Teslas. Right. So there we go. Overton window goes right that way. So
well, and the using of change agents, through these techniques to condition people and literally brainwash them. Courtney, this is fascinating. We're speaking with Courtney Turner. Her Substack is a must follow, by the way. Her website, CourtneyTurner.com, and you can follow her on X. Her handle is @CourtneyTurner. But her writing this piece, The Epstein Transhumanist Conspiracy, How Game B's Conscious Evolution Hides a Eugenics-Fueled Technocratic Takeover. It's a big piece. Can we go through it in 15 minutes? I would like to. We're going to go to break. I mean, if anyone can do it, Courtney can. You are, absolutely brilliant. I hope you'll come on my show forevermore, over and over, because we have a lot of learning to do from you, and I really appreciate your work. I love your story. I think you have an understanding of what is happening in the world today, culturally and politically, that most people don't. And so that worldview from someone who is not at the top, right? That understanding, figuring it out, it's like a puzzle. But I think you make a lot of sense. When we come back, we're going to look at now the technocracy, right? The mass conditioning of the American people, all of the trauma events, the apparatus of the government has grown, the controls have grown, the control grid has grown. Now they have the technology, and this is where it gets completely dangerous. Yeah. Medical freedom movement, COVID lockdowns, the rollout of the jabs, that was phase one. So many have been tricked into believing that we won with the election of Donald Trump and with Elon Musk and the installment of Bobby Kennedy Jr. at HHS, but they are tragically mistaken. We haven't even begun. Phase two is on its way in, and it is the techno-fascists, it is technocracy. Courtaney is going to help us understand what is coming from her perspective and research when we come back and how that links to Jeffrey Epstein of all people. We'll be back in a moment on the Shannon Joy Show. We love the folks over at Native Path. As you know, my morning routine is everything to me. Every morning I hydrate with Native Path Hydrate, and right after the hydration, the collagen goes in the coffee every single morning. Collagen is something that everyone over the age of 45 should start considering, because as we age, our bodies produce less collagen. That can impact our joint, our muscles, our hair, our nails, our skin. It is the reduction in the production of collagen that kind of makes you look old. So collagen is one of my beauty secrets. Devastatingly Handsome Dr. Joy, he uses it to tackle his joint pain, and it's the best on the market. Absolutely flavorless. It dissolves instantly, no clumps, no mess. It is 100% grass-fed beef beef collagen, and it is delicious. Native Path always has the best price point, and right now, 45% off for the Joy audience. Go to getnativepathcollagen.com. That is getnativepathcollagen.com for the exclusive 45% off stock up sale. I have not found a better product at a better price point than Native Path's collagen. It beats Walmart, it beats BJ's, anything you can get online. It just gets the job done, which is why I love it and why I use it every morning. Thank you to Native Path Collagen. Thank you to Satellite Phone Store, sat123.com/joy, sat123.com/joy. Without their amazing sponsorship, we couldn't bring the show to you every day. And it's always 10% off for every Joy viewer and listener with the promo code JOY. Why do we love them? Well, among other things, the satellite phones, the generators, the solar panels, everything you need for when the lights go out. They also have the most extensive line, one of the best quality lines of Faraday technology, beanies, bags, blankets, apparel. This is a way for you to reduce your body's exposure to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. And as we know, talking to Dr. Williams, that exposure can impact your heart health. And so a regular usage of that type of technology, super helpful. Again, so thankful to the Satellite Phone Store, among our other sponsors. Yesterday, I ran in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show a clip from Ed Dowd. Yes, I'm also working on getting Ed Dowd back into the Joy Virtual Studio, hopefully next week or the week after. But this was a blockbuster interview in which he said the real economy underneath the numbers that we've seen that have been trotted out by Donald Trump over the last year and a half has been abysmal. He is saying that we are moving towards some type of economic crisis. He said this has been the biggest asymmetrical trend I have ever seen in my life. That is the divorce from reality. So what is happening in the actual markets versus what they are telling you on left-wing news media and right-wing news media and from this administration. That means, and he's also advocating that people begin to consider a gold strategy. He's also said there is more gold in Fort Knox that we know than we really know. And he believes that's why there isn't an audit. Not because there's no gold, but because the central bankers, the elite political class, the people in the know are not getting rid of gold. They are hoarding it. They are collecting it. This is why every American needs a gold and silver strategy. I trust the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. Whether it's physical gold and silver in your safe or gold and silver to back up your retirement through a self-directed IRA. This is the company I trust. You will not believe how quickly they can move, how honest and friendly and helpful they are. As you know, I work with them exclusively on my physical gold and my IRA. They will help you understand all of your options. You've been saving your entire life. Do not let these bad people in Washington, D.C. erase your life savings. Back it up with gold and silver and use the company that I trust. colonialmetals.com/joy. colonialmetals.com/joy. They have a free gold guide, a free safe for new customers, and also you might qualify for up to $7,500 in free silver. So go to colonialmetals.com/joy today. It doesn't hurt to get started, and it's not too late. All right, back to Courtaney Turner, new guest. And girl, I think you should be in my Bad Girls Club. I have one, by the way. Speaking of clubs, it is Beta Alpha Delta. And it's secret. No, it isn't secret. Naomi Wolf's in my club. Sasha Latopova's in my club. Mary Talley Bowden. We meet regularly. I think you'd be perfect.
Love it.
Right. I've always wanted to start a sorority, so now I will.
There you go.
The bad girls. And it's women who are speaking up intelligently against the apparatus, the infrastructure, the two-party political paradigm, because what we're facing is very real and very dangerous. Let's start there with what you think we're facing in terms of the technocracy and how you understand it. And hopefully we can end with how to stop it.
Yeah. So I think the technocracy is the number one threat right now. I really think this is the most important issue. When people talk about the history of fascism, socialism, communism, they were responsible for millions of atrocities throughout history. However, I don't think the tyranny is anything like what people can fathom, which would occur under a true technocracy. And that is really what they're rolling out right now. So if you look back at the history of technocracy, I know we covered it a bit on the panel with Patrick Wood and Joe Allen. And of course, this is born out of the 1930s. It was a response to the Depression. So it really was an economic movement. And it was all centered right there. Logo was the yin yang, and it was the monad. If you think about it, that's what it was. And it was this idea that they would have a balance between the environmental resources and these kind of this economic policy movement that they were trying to implement. And they wanted to replace everything with energy credits. They were saying we were going to have abundance through energy credits. What are they talking about now out of places like the UN? They're talking about carbon credits.
That's right.
Right? And it's really the same thing. But what we're seeing in the United States, I think, is actually even more concerning than some of these autocratic types of technocratic movements that we've seen around the world. Not that those aren't very, very concerning. The AI World Society is something everybody should familiarize themselves with. I wrote an article on the digital democracy movement, and that's very, very concerning as well. But it's that's about the AI World Society. But what we're seeing in the United States is now they've had, and I actually wasn't familiar with this term of like the three-legged stool. Patrick Wood taught me about it. And it's exactly what we're seeing is now we've got the economic movement of technocracy, but they're merging with the political and they're merging with the religious. And so we have these Christian nationalists. I put them in quotes. They call themselves Christian nationalists, but they're. I do think you had mentioned fake Christians, and
yeah.
So it's that's kind of what they're using it. They use the language, I call it Christianese. So they speak of things like we've heard people talk about, like Russell Brand talking about Christ consciousness, and to somebody who's not very versed in their Bible, that may sound Christian, but it's straight out of the mouths of Alice Bailey and Madame Blavatsky. This is not talking about Jesus Christ at all.
Lots of converts out there, Courtney. Lots of recent Christ is King Christian converts.
Yeah.
They're all Catholics.
Yeah, a lot of them are Catholic, but a lot of these Christian nationalists are not. They're reformer mostly. So it's, they're infiltrating in various different sects of Christianity, but ultimately it's a version that doesn't look very Christian, in my opinion. But they're using it because, we were talking about the left and the right-hand path, right? So the right-hand path is very much under the archetypes of traditionalism. So Christianity falls under that banner, patriarchal kind of an archetype, the muscular kind of autocratic disciplinarian. So that's kind of what they're operating through. But then on the left-hand path, we have what I was talking about, this Game B movement that worships the Divine Mother, the Gaia religion, the Mother Earth religion, which is also very much in line with technocracy, right? Because they were talking about the balance of the Earth's resources. But really what these people want, these so-called elites, I don't think they're elites, they're parasites and predators, but they want to create a techno-neo-feudal system where we're the serfs doing their bidding for them. So they do need us, even though they're guiding us towards a post-human world. For right now, they really do need us. So that's the power we have to push back. Yeah. But through this left movement, they're all steeped in the Gaia religion. They're, most of them do have relationships with organizations like the Club of Rome, the UN. They're very much entrenched in the ideas of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this Game B movement is, I would say, if I were to give the elevator pitch, it's scientific socialism that's steering us towards technocracy. So in the United States, we have much more of the right-hand path operating surrounding Trump with the Dark Enlightenment. People like Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land, and we now have Elon Musk talking about his new party, American Party, quote unquote. I put it in air quotes because it doesn't seem very American to me at all. It seems like third way politics. I wrote an article on the technological age of Aquarius, the third way dream or digital dystopia. It looks like digital dystopia to me.
Wow. Yeah.
So
now the left hand, so the right hand is, how they entrap the right, conservatives, Christians, you name it, and kind of shape technocracy into something that would be palatable to them. The left, which is the Game B, is the more frou-frou, woohoo, Gaia, a little softer, Mother Earth. And this is how they sneak in on the traditional left. Now, this is where Epstein comes in. Yes. This is where Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein come in. This is featured prominently in her piece, by the way, so you guys need to read this. But how did Jeffrey Epstein managed to become the epicenter of the scientific world on the left in terms of Game B and furthering the technocracy? It's fascinating.
So there is overlap, so people know there's overlap with the right as well, because they're never really, it's really just what they're operating through. They're not really ideologically entrenched. It's much more strategic. So that's why I focus a lot on tactics, because once people can spot the tactic, then we can stop being trapped by their very clever marketing skills. But Epstein was involved in this organization called the Edge Foundation. And so John Brockman, who is a literary agent, and I haven't watched it yet, but people have told me that Naomi Wolf actually talked about her experience.
Fascinating. Naomi, John Brockman was, I believe, her publicist or her editor.
Her literary agent, because that's what he was. He was a literary agent.
Yep.
He was bringing all these minds together for essentially, I would call it an influence operation. That's really what it was. And out of that was born these billionaire dinners where it wasn't just scientists, it was like athletes and celebrities and people who were very wealthy and powerful and influential. But he did really seem to have this interest in science and steering science. I think he had a transhuman and technocratic interest. And that, we could say agenda, but definitely an interest. And I think it was really a personal interest. I mean, he had this Zorro baby ranch where he wanted to seed humanity with his DNA.
It's a little Jeffrey Epstein's running around. Yay. No.
No. Little baby Epstein's doesn't sound like what this world needs right now. But interestingly enough, he never had children. So I have my theories on it. I actually didn't, I made so many bold claims that I didn't really address it in this article. But either he was infertile, which, possible. I don't necessarily, that's not where my gut tells me. I think they were doing these experiments with either like genetic kind of manipulation of enhanced humans or cloning, something of that sort is what my gut tells me. But, I don't have the goods to prove that yet. But yeah, so he had, and this gave me chills. So the Edge Foundation, in 2001, did a reboot event right before 9/11, and they're doing a reboot. And so these scientists, yeah, and one could argue we roll out the Patriot Act, and now we're seeing the rollout, I think, of Patriot Act 2.0 with Palantir.
That's right.
But so then he was doing this final question series. So every year there was an annual series where they would have these scientists pose like the last question for humanity. And I found that in 2018, the Weinstein brothers were both involved and they posed their questions. Now, Brett Weinstein is how I found out about Game B, because I had watched his talk about the medical freedom movement, right? He did his Rescue the Republic speech, where he spends the whole speech talking about the West, which I found very interesting because it's specifically Rescue the Republic. Now, I recognize that the United States is a byproduct of Western civilization. Of course, we care about the West, we care about the world. But when you talk about the Republic, that's a very specific thing. And so he's talking about the West through this entire speech, and then he ends it with the last 5 minutes saying we have to phoenix the Republic. He, parrots Ben Franklin's quote, like when they ask him what kind of a government is this, and he says, a republic if you can keep it. And he says, we need to phoenix the Republic. And it wasn't a throwaway. He spent 5 minutes talking about it afterwards. And I thought that was very curious. And so I started doing a little investigation, and that was how I found out that he's one of the founders of this movement of Game B. And so then to find out that he had posed this question, and his question in 2018 was, can humans chart a non-evolutionary course that's game theoretically stable? And his brother asked, does something unprecedented happen when we finally, unveil our own source code? So these very much seem related.
Technocratic. Yeah, technocratic. Yeah, we have to wrap, Courtney. I know you had to fly through that, but that is wild. I've had my suspicions, and I there's nothing firm yet, but I think recent events have soured me a little bit to the Weinsteins, where they came from, and what they're trying to shape here. It's also important to note that Jeffrey Epstein controlled. I mean, he was interested in all of this stuff, but his backers, when you look at the reporting of Whitney Webb and how many financial crimes he was involved with, global financial crimes, and how much money laundering was going through Jeffrey Epstein and then dispersed to these organizations, you can see him as a major player in the creation of the left-hand technocratic infiltration of the left. So Courtney Turner, great reporting. This is just the beginning. We're going to have you back. I mean, there are so many places that we can go. Thank you so much for being with us. How can people find your Substack real quick?
They can go to CourtneyTurner.substack.com, but I spell my name like Courtaney, CourtaneyTurner.com.
Courtaney Turner, a new regular guest in the Shannon Joy Show and member of the Bad Girls Club. Let's go. I'm just initiating. Just kidding. All right. Thank you guys so much for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you so much to Courtney. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.